This is your WWE Super Showdown preview and predictions video here on the official Wrestle News 365 YouTube channel. At the time of recording, WWE Super Showdown takes place live on the WWE Network tomorrow evening here in the UK, tomorrow afternoon in the US, or wherever you will be watching it. It will take place from the Mohammed Abdu Arena on the Boulevard in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for another WWE in Saudi Arabia event. Regardless of your opinions or distaste or unhappiness for these pay-per-views going on in Saudi Arabia with WWE, they aren't going anywhere soon. In 2018, it was announced that this was going to be a 10-year deal with the Saudi Arabian government, and this was, of course, expanded upon after last year's Crown Jewel event, even though WWE didn't make it back in time for the SmackDown event. We don't want to rehash old news, but that's just what it is there. So in this video, we'll sort of preview the matches, we'll go over my predictions for the matches. There are 10 of them at the time of recording now, but earlier today, on the Wednesday, it was announced that there was only 7 matches going into the Super Showdown event. And at the time, people were saying, 7 matches, still quite a few matches going on here. 3 more, yes, 3 more were added or announced on WWE's The Bump, their sort of midweek show that they do on the network and all of their social media platforms. So we have 10 matches going into this show, and that just feels like it's way too many. And I know some people will say, well, you're going to have a couple on the pre-show and they won't be that long. They will be long. These WWE events, look, let's be honest, they're traveling a fair distance to go to Saudi Arabia to put these shows on. They have a standard to uphold, even though some of the shows you wouldn't believe that if you actually looked at them, but they have a standard to uphold. They want to please the Saudi government with these shows. The Saudi government is pumping a lot of money into these events, so WWE wants to over-deliver, hence them bringing out all the legends like they do. So 10 matches. We're going to be in for a long haul show, it feels like. As I said, they have announced that there will be a kickoff show, so I'm assuming that will take place an hour before the event starts. So I think we're looking at like a 4-hour show, maybe including the kickoff, maybe even a little bit longer. So we're going to be in for a slog on this one. It just feels like that's par for the course when it comes to WWE pay-per-views nowadays. But going into WrestleMania season, I question whether that's really necessary. WrestleMania itself has been criticised the last however many years for being way too long, and by the time you get to the main event, you're just tired. It's not a case of the match is not being good, it's just the crowd's tired, the viewer's tired, you don't want to do it anymore in terms of watching the show. Is that really necessary for a Super Showdown event? I don't think so itself. But I don't want to be hypocritical here, but I don't want to have this video go on about 10 hours long as well as the show. So let's get into the matches. It's been announced that the first match on the kickoff show will be the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ivar, versus the OC, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. It's weird, isn't it? Because back at Crown Jewel, these were the last 2 tag teams in the tag team gauntlet match, and apparently there is almost a rule at this point that there has to be a gauntlet match on every Saudi Arabia show. We'll get into that later. In terms of who I think is going to win, I would think it's relatively obvious that the Viking Raiders would win this one. They've been quite protected whenever they've been on Monday Night Raw. When they were the tag team champions, the only team to beat them twice was Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. And at the time when they did beat them, they didn't do anything with them. Remember the last time WWE was in Saudi Arabia, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson were crowned the best tag team in the world, quotes. And they've done nothing since. So what a heck of a tag team that is, and what a heck of a moniker that is. Talk about the kiss of death on that one. In terms of the match should be fine. These 2 teams are fine. They can work, and it's almost a shame that the tag team division on Raw is just so forgettable at this point for me. I'm just not interested in it. I like the tag team of Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. I like them being the tag team champions. At the time, I didn't like them beating the Viking Raiders because I don't like, in any circumstances, a tag team that's just been formed beating an established tag team. It lacks logic for me. But in terms of this match, I see the Viking Raiders winning it, and like I said, nothing too crazy about that one. So the next match, we have a rematch from Monday Night Raw. Apparently rematches don't just happen on Raw and SmackDown, they also happen on pay-per-views at this point. We have Humberto Carrillo versus Angel Garza. Of course, they are cousins from the same family, from the Hector Garza family and the Humberto Carrillo Sr. Family. In terms of the chemistry, I thought the match on Raw was fine. This whole angle just hasn't been doing it for me, and that's because it's not necessarily on Angel Garza. I'm a huge fan of Angel Garza. I think he has a ton of potential. I think he has a ton of charisma. And I really do think he's WWE's next Latino star. They've been looking for 10 years at this point for someone to fill the boots of Rey Mysterio, even to the point of bringing Rey Mysterio back into the company because they really, really missed having that big Latino, Mexican, Spanish-speaking star, whatever you want to call it. And they've tried so many people in that. Like I said, they tried Alberto Del Rio, that didn't work. They've tried to groom, at this point, Humberto Carrillo into that spot, and he just hasn't resonated with the audience. And I know people will say, well, give him time, give him time, give him time. But at this point, you know, the draft happened when? Back in late September, start of October. So it's been a few months now, and I just don't think he's connected. Whereas you have someone like Angel Garza, who's only been on Raw a couple of weeks. We've seen what he can do in NXT. We've seen the charisma. We've seen his in-ring work when he was the NXT Cruiserweight Champion. And he just has this intangible quality for me. He has this it factor. He has this charisma. The crowd loves him. At the moment, as a heel, he plays a great heel. But there's a babyface in there as well, I think, in the future. And WWE wouldn't have called him up so quickly if he wasn't ready for this spot. And I know some people will say, well, you know, Andrade, the suspension did kind of force that hand, which is true to a point. You know, they still needed to or wanted to have that Latino feud, I guess. But Angel Garza has been the standout. Like I said, his charisma, I think, is off the charts. I think his in-ring work's good, and it's only going to get better. He's still a very young guy. And when he first came to NXT, his English wasn't great at all. And that wasn't that long ago either. And his English has really come on leaps and bounds. So I really do like the pairing of him and Selena Vega. I really like Angel Garza just in general, not even as a babyface or a heel. I think he will do the whole get over as a heel and then get even more over as a babyface in the future. So I think the upside on Angel Garza is absolutely huge. And in terms of this match, I think Angel Garza wins this one. I'm starting to feel like the ship is starting to sail on Humberto Carrillo. I'm just as a fan, I'm not invested in him, and I would say I'm more of a hardcore, obviously, fan. I'm here speaking on this video, aren't I? Of course, and I just don't think the casual fan cares enough for him. That's not necessarily a case, a reference to himself. You know, he's a good worker. His in-ring work is fine. I haven't really heard him cut a great promo. I don't know, there's just something that doesn't connect there for me. So I'm going to go with Angel Garza to win this one. So the next match, we have Mansoor making his traditional Saudi Arabia appearance this time against Dolph Ziggler. Now, it's a bit of a double-edged sword on this one when it comes to the whole Mansoor thing, because I feel like he gets a bit of criticism and a bit of, I don't know. He gets criticised because obviously he gets trotted out on these Saudi Arabia shows. He goes over. When hasn't he gone over on these shows? He won that. Was it big battle royal last year at Super Showdown? He beat Cesaro at Crown Jewel last time, and spoiler alert, he will probably beat Dolph Ziggler here, and they'll call it again a huge upset. And it obviously is to please the Saudi Arabia crowd. It's to please the Saudi Arabia government. WWE wouldn't have got into this 10-year deal with Saudi Arabia, with Saudi Arabia not going, okay, we really want to have our own star. We want to have our own guy in the WWE and in these matches. So, look, these things happen, I guess. It's almost political at this point. But the issue that I have in terms of this argument is that Mansoor is actually really good. On the mic, he's great. He recently did, for NXT TakeOver Portland, he was on the kickoff show for that, along with Sam Roberts, who, just a little side point, Sam Roberts was getting kicked, like absolutely booed out of the building. He had heat that was nuclear at that point, but Mansoor was the foil to him in this kickoff show, and Mansoor was great, and Mansoor is really great on the mic. after his victory against Cesaro last time at Crown Jewel, he cut a great promo. That wasn't just a suck up to the crowd promo, it was a great promo about following your dreams and how it's been a lifelong dream of his to be in the WWE, to perform in front of his home country crowd, in front of his hometown crowd, and all of that stuff. Now he's had a couple of other appearances on NXT here and there. Most of the time he has appeared on NXT, he hasn't actually won. So it would appear that Mansoor can only win in Saudi Arabia. But I am actually quite a big fan of Mansoor. I think his work's pretty solid. Like I said, on the mic, I think his promo work's great. The only thing that's just slightly eye-rolling is that he only wins a match when he appears on these shows in front of his home country crowd against established stars that really should be going over. Like I said, I'm a fan of Mansoor. He has no business in going over Cesaro. I'm a fan of Mansoor. He had no business winning that giant battle royal last year. And I'm a fan of Mansoor, but he shouldn't be beating Dolph Ziggler. But let's face it, he will be beating Dolph Ziggler tomorrow. I would be absolutely stunned. Now, in terms of the match itself, we might have some shenanigans with Mandy Rose, maybe, or Otis comes out, actually costs Dolph Ziggler the match. Either way, I'm sure the match will be great. His match against Cesaro Mansoor was really good, actually, on the last show. One of the better matches at Crown Jewel last year. So I have no doubts that Dolph Ziggler will help Mansoor through this match, and it'll be Dolph Ziggler will bump his ass off Mansoor, and Mansoor will do likewise for Dolph Ziggler. So I'm sure the match will be fine. It'll get quite a bit of time, actually, considering Mansoor's in the match in front of the hometown crowd. But Mansoor wins this one, and I don't think that result would shock anyone. So next, we have Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy, or Murphy, I guess. He doesn't have a first name anymore. The first name curse strikes again in WWE. They're defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against the Street Profits after the Street Profits attacked Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy, I guess, a couple of weeks ago on Raw. That's the story there. Not much of a story. Just, okay, they attacked him once. Okay, so yeah, that makes you eligible for a Tag Team Championship match, I guess. In terms of the match should be great. As I mentioned earlier with the Viking Raiders OC match, I really do enjoy the tag team of Rollins and Murphy. I wasn't keen on them becoming the tag team champions in the first place because I don't like hodgepodge tag teams beating established tag teams. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's no logic there. Established tag teams should always win because they know the ins and outs of tag team wrestling better than two singles competitors pushed together. That's just my opinion on those sort of things. I think it hurts the tag team division. But either way, I'm sure this match should be fine. The Street Profits recently on Raw, I've been quite critical in terms of their promos. I think in ring they're fine, but their promos of the Monday after the weekend update, or they're just ad nauseating recapping of the shows, or this like narrator. They're like narrators of the show sort of thing, and they've been doing this ever since they just randomly appeared on Raw in the sort of fall of last year or the summer of last year, whenever they first appeared. And it's no criticism on them. I really do have to stress this. It's no criticism on them. I'm not saying that their promo or their ability to cut a promo is bad. Whoever writes their promos for them, whoever scripts their promos for them, should be fired immediately on the spot, because their promos are just awful to listen to. They're eye-rolling. The comedy misses 99% of the time, actually 99.9% of the time, and they're just a waste of time. And these guys have so much charisma and they have so much ability on the mic that they could show, but it's just stifled by this just awful, corny promos that just make you want to change the channel, or just make you want to press the mute button and just go, okay, when is this over? And the frustrating thing is they're so much better than that, or they're able to be so much better than that. And I just don't think they're given the ability to show that. Now, in terms of this match, I would be, quite frankly, stunned if the Street Profits won the Tag Team Championships this quickly into Rollins and Murphy's reign. Maybe the AOP gets involved. I could see that happening. Either way, I think Rollins and Murphy win this one. I don't see the Street Profits at this point being ready for a Tag Team Championship reign anyway, and I don't see them being realistically the ones that should be ending Rollins and Murphy's reign. I'd love to see Seth Rollins and Murphy face each other at WrestleMania as a sort of teacher versus student thing. I would feel like even if they did do that, that might be slightly too quick for that. I think there's a longer story they can tell with Rollins being the leader and Murphy being the disciple. But I'd love to see them tell that story in maybe a bit of longer form some way down the line. But in terms of this match, I think it should be a fine match. Obviously, I think Rollins leads the ship on this one. He's a terrific in-ring performer. But I think they come out with the Tag Team Championship still intact. Now, next we have only the second ever female match, or women's match, in Saudi Arabia history. Last time it was Lacey Evans versus Natalya. This time we have something with a bit higher stakes that's actually been advertised a bit more in advance. Obviously, with the Natalya Lacey Evans match, that kind of came a bit at the last minute. And I think that's, well, reports would suggest that was because WWE didn't know if they could actually pull it off or they could get clearance to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of women's rights issues when it comes to the Middle East, so it was a big moment when Lacey Evans and Natalya had that match. Now, some people at the time criticised, said, "Oh, WWE are trying to, jump on top of this for PR." And maybe they are, but it's still big steps when it comes to just having that performance in the Middle East. So I credit WWE. I applaud them for being able to pull that off and being able to actually have women's wrestling in Saudi Arabia. But this time, like I said, we have something that's a bit more advertised in advance, and we have something with a bit more prestige on it, as Bayley is defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Naomi. I was really, quite frankly, surprised that they had this whole Carmella element the last few weeks on SmackDown. You had Naomi, ever since she came back at the Royal Rumble, confronting Bayley. Bayley's running away from Naomi. You're thinking, okay, the story they're going to tell is Naomi versus Bayley. Fine. And then they just had this weird 2 weeks that I didn't, quite frankly, understand. That one, so this big challenger you're trying to build up gets beat by Carmella in that, was it like a Fatal 4-Way or Fatal 5-Way or whatever they had on SmackDown. So she gets beat clean. Okay, so why should she even be able to challenge for Bayley at this point? And then Carmella faces Bayley. Bayley defeats Carmella. So the person that defeated Naomi is defeated by Bayley, so why should Bayley have any issue facing Naomi? I don't know. And then Naomi, of course, does in the end get some form of redemption, I guess, by beating Carmella, which leads to the match here on Super Showdown. So I don't think at the time there was rumours that Naomi might be taking the place of Sasha Banks at WrestleMania, because the plan for the longest time has been to have Bayley defend the SmackDown Women's Championship against Sasha Banks at WrestleMania, have that renewing of that fantastic rivalry they had in NXT. But it would appear now that at the time there was rumours that, Sasha Banks might be injured, she might be away, she had this ankle injury, so is WWE going to be saving that match for WrestleMania? It doesn't look like it if they're going to have this match here. So I would assume that would lead one to believe that Bayley is going to come out on top here and retain the SmackDown Women's Championship. And then post Super Showdown, we're going to transition into a Bayley versus Sasha Banks feud for the match at WrestleMania, which I think is the match everyone really wants to see. They're the two standout stars in the SmackDown Women's division, which I think is painfully thin on talent for SmackDown. I know people are going to say, you have Alexa Bliss, you have Carmella, and they're okay in the ring, but your two standout in-ring talents on SmackDown are Bayley and Sasha Banks, and I don't care what anyone says, that's just the truth when it comes to that. So Bayley versus Sasha Banks looks to be set for WrestleMania if you consider that Bayley versus Naomi is happening here on Super Showdown. So I would assume that Bayley comes out on top on this one. So next, we have the New Day defending the SmackDown Tag Team Championship against John Morrison and The Miz. Can John Morrison and The Miz regain a Tag Team Championship in WWE? Well, when was the last time they had it? 2009, or 2008 they won it. So, they were last Tag Team Champions in 2009. So 11 years after they last held a Tag Team Championship in WWE. What a story that would be. And bit of a spoiler, I think John Morrison and The Miz are going to come out on top on this one. The New Day won the Tag Team Championship, just before Survivor Series time, so around October, November time on WWE TV. And I think this has been one of their more forgettable reigns, I would say, in terms of being tag team champions. Well, I mean, what can you name the awesome tag team matches they've had? I can't really. And I think the tag team division on SmackDown's starting to rise back up now. At the time when they won it, it kind of felt like there wasn't much of a division on SmackDown. I don't think the revival is going to be much longer for that tag team division on SmackDown. They seem pretty much out the door at this point. So on SmackDown, you've got the New Day, you've got Miz and Morrison, and you've got the Usos. Maybe Ziggler and Rude you can throw in there as your fourth tag team, but that's a pretty decent tag team division. But I think the momentum and the heat is on John Morrison and the Miz at this point. I would think that they feel like they can. WWE is really pushing them to be not only a big tag team, but eventually they will, of course, branch off to single stars. But I don't think they're going to ever officially break up like they did last time. I think this is going to be a case of they're a team, but they venture off and then come back together. So I think the logical step for this one would be to have John Morrison and The Miz win it, right? If you want to keep building that story of The Miz and John Morrison coming back together, and they do feel like they've got momentum on their side. I've enjoyed their promos recently. I really enjoyed that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood goof or spoof that they did a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown. I thought that was quite entertaining. And to be honest, the more of Miz's dad that we can have on TV, the better. I mean, how awesome would it be for John Morrison and The Miz to be SmackDown Tag Team Champions with George Mizanin as their manager, a heel manager? Wouldn't that just be great? That would be, that's must-see television on Friday nights. Vince McMahon, book that, or Bruce Pritchard, book that. That's what you really want to see. So I think the match should be fine. I think their chemistry between the New Day and The Miz and John Morrison recently on SmackDown has been good. Their matches have been good. So I think the match itself should be good. But I think the logical outcome here would be to have John Morrison and The Miz come out as tag team champions. Lord knows The Miz needs it. I think you think of the 2019 he really needs a victory at this point, or he needs some momentum after just getting destroyed by Shane McMahon and The Fiend and just destroying his character basically for a whole year. He really needs the victory at this point. So the next match, we have the gauntlet match. Now, like I mentioned earlier, it would appear that in every Saudi Arabia show we have to have a gauntlet match because they just want to fill time. We'll get as many people on the show and get a payday as possible. It's either a battle royal or it's a gauntlet, isn't it? So we've got a gauntlet match for the first ever Tawake Trophy. Now, not only does it appear that on every Saudi Arabia show we have a gauntlet match or a battle royal, but we have a trophy on every show. If it's not the greatest Royal Rumble, if it's not the best in the world for the World Cup or the best tag team in the world, now it's for the Tawake Trophy. So we've got AJ Styles going up against, or a returning AJ Styles, returning from injury. Of course, his shoulder injury suffered at the Royal Rumble in the hands of Edge, against United States champion Andrade, who is returning from suspension as well, his 30-day suspension of the wellness policy. Bobby Lashley, Eric Rowan, R-Truth, and Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was a substitute for Rusev. Some people speculated that the Rusev substitution had to do with his contract. It's not. It's due to Rusev actually working through a minor back injury at the moment. So he's working through that one. So Rey Mysterio is back, even though he was DDT'd onto the concrete a couple of weeks ago. Apparently he's made a miraculous recovery just at the same time as Andrade did. Apparently that concrete DDT can't keep you up for too long after all. In terms of the match, at this point, a gauntlet match feels like WWE's go-to match at this point. Over the last 3 years, how many gauntlet matches have we seen on WWE TV or pay-per-views? It's just been overdone to death. And when you see them now, they don't feel special anymore, purely because the reason they don't feel special is because you know what WWE's trying to do. You can see through what they're trying to achieve from these gauntlet matches, and that's to fill time. They're trying to fill 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, because they know it takes that long, so that's what this match is. Now, in terms of the AJ Styles element of this, it has been reported by WWE itself now, since so many people were reporting on it, that The Undertaker has travelled with the WWE to Saudi Arabia. It's also been reported that he's going to be facing AJ Styles at WrestleMania. He handpicked AJ Styles to face him at WrestleMania, as he believes, with his advanced age of The Undertaker and his limitations in the ring with all of his injuries at this point in his, not just his career, his life. He believes that AJ Styles can pull a great match out of the Phenom, and I would tend to agree. I think AJ Styles is a tremendous pick for The Undertaker to face at WrestleMania this year. He can work around him, he can bump for him. I think they can have a decent match this year at WrestleMania. So my point being, The Undertaker has travelled with the WWE to Saudi Arabia. We know that pretty much 90% likely he's going to be facing AJ Styles at WrestleMania. So I would suggest, or it would make logical sense, that AJ Styles wins this Tawake Trophy. Post-match, he's out there with the OC. We've also already heard AJ Styles call himself Mr. WrestleMania. He's asked who's next. He said that he could beat Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Razor Ramon. He even mentioned The Undertaker by name. That was no coincidence. So I see AJ Styles winning. I see him post-match bragging about it, saying that nobody can beat him. Who's going to face him at WrestleMania? He is Mr. WrestleMania. And then we see the entrance of The Undertaker, and AJ Styles versus The Undertaker is set in motion for WrestleMania in about 6 weeks' time. So that's what I expect from this one. I expect the majority of this, like I said, just to be filler. But I expect AJ Styles to win, and post-match I expect to see The Undertaker come out, and that's when we start the AJ Styles versus The Undertaker feud. So I'm excited about that one. I wasn't sure of the story initially they were going to tell with The Undertaker versus AJ Styles, but this idea that AJ Styles is calling himself Mr. WrestleMania, calling himself the best ever, saying that nobody is worthy of facing him, who's going to face him next. I like that idea, and I like The Undertaker being the one to step up and put the new Mr. WrestleMania, in quotation marks, in his place. So next we have Roman Reigns versus King Corbin in a steel cage match. I am praying to whoever is listening. I am, touch wood, fingers crossed, whatever you do to make sure things happen. I am hoping, I am praying that this is the final match between Roman Reigns and King Corbin. Like the meme says, it's been 84 years. That's how long it feels like this feud has been going on for. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised that they booked this match for Super Showdown, because that's what WWE does. The logical thing would be, okay, they had a really good match. They had a really good match. Their Falls Count Anywhere match at the Royal Rumble was a fun opener to the show, really enjoyable. And he went, that feud went on way too long, but okay, that's the way to finish it. Then they had the match on SmackDown. Roman Reigns put the dog food over Reigns. You went, well, you're pushing your luck now. You're pushing your luck because it's way too long, this feud. But okay, that's the finish. You had the dog food redemption. Fine. No. WWE went, okay, we're going to finish it up. We're going to have a steel cage match. Like I said with the Gauntlet match, they're just trying to fill time. They've got so many events, so many shows to do between here and WrestleMania. These two aren't going to be facing each other at WrestleMania. At the time, people thought Roman Reigns was going to be facing The Fiend. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening anymore. But they're just trying to fill time. And I have no doubts that Roman Reigns is going to win this one. Why King Corbin would win this match, I have no idea. Booking-wise, it would make no sense. No logical sense for him to win it. I'm sure the match will be fine. Their matches itself have been fine. You can't criticise their matches. They've been fine. Like I said, the match at the Royal Rumble was actually really good and really fun. But I just don't care at this point. I really don't care. When did this feud start? Before Survivor Series in October. We're in late February now, and I just care even less than I cared then. So Roman Reigns will win. Hopefully the match isn't too long. Hopefully the match will be fine, but I care minimal about this match, if at all. And speaking of caring, the next match is for the WWE Championship. Brock Lesnar defending against Ricochet. Spoiler, Brock Lesnar will win. I don't really need to say any more there, do I? I mentioned this on Twitter earlier. This match, I couldn't be less hyped for it. I don't care. Why should I care? You're promoting that Brock Lesnar is going to be facing Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Everyone knows that Brock Lesnar is going to be facing Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre, after he won the Royal Rumble, the next night he came out, he said, I'm facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. They're still advertising Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And then they keep doing, oh, wow, if Ricochet wins, he'll be facing Drew McIntyre. He's not going to win. He's not. And I know they're going to say, well, this elevates Ricochet. No, it won't. I mean, look how it happened for Samoa Joe. Look what happened to Braun Strowman after they had their single matches with Lesnar. Look at Finn Balor at the Royal Rumble last year. Look how that worked out for Finn Balor. This won't elevate Ricochet. It will keep him exactly where he is. If anything, he will lose this match in decisive fashion, and then WWE creative will be, his shine will be gone. And to be honest, he doesn't have much shine on him anyway. I've been heavily critical for Ricochet for his promos. Don't get me wrong, Ricochet is phenomenal. Phenomenal in the ring. Some of the stuff he can do is absolutely insane, and some of his matches have been amazing, and some of the stuff he did in NXT was amazing. But God, his promos are beyond awful. Now, a bit like the Street Profits, I don't fully blame him, because WWE, we know someone is writing their promos for them. So whoever is writing this real life superheroes come to life, dreams are real, you achieve your dreams. Awful. just awful. But his delivery of them isn't great either. His cadence when he talks, there's no conviction in there, and it's just corny and it's just eye rolling. Almost to the point where you want to see Brock Lesnar just absolutely murder this man, which he'll do. And I'm sure this will be Brock Lesnar versus Small Guy 101. Brock Lesnar does tend to have his better matches against small guys, so I'm sure the match should be pretty good if Brock Lesnar decides he wants to sell for Ricochet. There'll probably be a couple of low blow spots in there as well. Obviously, Brock kicked Ricochet in the nuts a couple of weeks ago before the Royal Rumble, and then Ricochet at the Royal Rumble kicked Brock Lesnar in the nuts, so I'm sure that's the story that they'll tell. Apparently, that's the only way to get Brock Lesnar down, to kick him in the balls, because that happens in every match that Brock Lesnar has at this point. Wear a cup. Talk to AJ Styles with Shinsuke Nakamura if you'd wear a cup, Brock. But I'm sure that will happen. Brock will dominate him early, do a load of suplexes. Brock will jog around in the ring for a bit. Ricochet will get a low blow. He'll hit some big moves. He'll hit a 630. He'll hit a shooting star press. He'll do all of that. Get near falls. Oh, is Ricochet really going to pull off the impossible F5? Done. That will be the match, and then we can actually move on to the match we really want to see, which is Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. That's how this match is going to go, and as I mentioned at the start, I couldn't care less for it. I'm just not hyped for it at all because WWE's given me no reason to. The best matches have stakes. This match has no stakes, and I know people will say, well, it's for the WWE Championship. Of course there are stakes. There aren't any stakes because Brock Lesnar is not dropping the WWE Championship to Ricochet. I can almost guarantee it. So let's forget about that one. Now let's go on to the main event, which is the controversial main event, which is for the WWE Universal Championship. You have The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, defending against Goldberg. This is an interesting one. Now, when this was first announced, I was 99% sure that The Fiend wasn't going to drop the Universal Championship to Goldberg. He couldn't drop the championship to Goldberg, right? After WWE has spent the last 12 months building up Bray Wyatt, grown men have cried and cowered and run away from The Fiend in fear. Seth Rollins at one point even started crying in the ring to him. He was that scary. And The Fiend has destroyed everyone. He kicked out people's finishes, and he's the new Undertaker, mashed with Kane. He's the new superhuman badass that no one can touch. And it was reported as well that this was going to be Goldberg's only match. He wasn't going to be factored into WrestleMania plans. So this was just Goldberg getting his Saudi payday like he tends to do, like he did last year for the last Super Showdown show. But things have changed recently. It was originally announced or reported, and it had been reported for the longest time, that The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, was going to defend the Universal Championship against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That was one of the only matches back in even October that was solid. That was in concrete for WrestleMania. And that's all changed now. Several people have reported that the whole Universal Championship match at WrestleMania is in a state of flux. Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt is likely not happening for WrestleMania now. And John Cena, Goldberg, Roman Reigns, and The Fiend, their whole WrestleMania plans are kind of in smoke at this point and in a state of flux, and no one really knows what's going on. And why should that matter for this match here? Well, as I mentioned previously, Goldberg wasn't planned for WrestleMania. He now is. So what's changed there? Roman Reigns isn't going to be facing The Fiend at WrestleMania for the Universal Championship. Again, so what's happened there? John Cena's coming back. Initially, it was reported that he was going to be facing Elias. It looks like that's not going to happen now. So what's happened there? Could John Cena be facing The Fiend at WrestleMania? And could Goldberg be facing Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship? So it would appear that this whole The Fiend definitely beating Goldberg for the Universal Championship is not exactly a done deal and not exactly a sure thing as we all thought. Now, this could just be a smokescreen and a red herring from WWE to drive up interest, but a lot of the people reporting on this, I believe, are very credible sources, and I'm really not sure what to expect from this match. I would be really, really, really disappointed if Goldberg was the one to beat The Fiend. Goldberg's 53 years old. His matches go like 2 minutes. His last match that went longer than that, he nearly knocked himself out and had one of the more terrible matches in recent WWE history. At the last Super Showdown event, it was an absolute cluster and just a mess. So I would be really disappointed if Goldberg was the one to put the Fiend to rest. I think that should be saved for maybe a John Cena or maybe for a Roman Reigns. I had no problem with Roman Reigns facing the Fiend at WrestleMania. Some people did, but I had no problem with it at all. But it looks like now that might not happen. I'm going to stick with my prediction that the Fiend wins this one because the Fiend makes so much money for WWE at the moment. His merchandise, even for a heel, makes a lot of money. His character is different. His character is over, regardless of how hard WWE has tried to butcher it with the red lights of doom and all of this nonsensical stuff. And I would hope that Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg tomorrow doesn't have the red light. I just can't imagine that Goldberg would be up for that. Maybe it'll have the red lights. You won't be able to see when Goldberg busts himself open like he did against the Undertaker last year. Who knows? But I don't think WWE is that dumb to see the Fiend, after all that time and money and effort they've put into building him up, just go up and smoke to Goldberg, who will only be coming back for maybe this match and a WrestleMania match. Is that really worth it? And I know WWE will go, well, we wanted to get the title on Roman Reigns anyway. If Goldberg wins, Goldberg can take the heat. And, fans would actually want to see Roman Reigns beat Goldberg, which is true. That would be smarter booking, but no, and I know Dave Meltzer has said that Roman Reigns versus Goldberg is more marquee than the Fiend versus Roman Reigns. Well, that's WWE's fault because they can't build up their own star and Bray Wyatt if that's the case. So that's just a fact. So I'm still going to stick with the Fiend winning this one, and that's what I hope to see. I really hope WWE doesn't lose their nerve and hot shots the title on Goldberg like they did last time. We don't need to see history repeating itself like we saw around WrestleMania 33 and in 2017. That was so 2017. That was 3 years ago. And we don't need to see that happen again, in my opinion. I would be up for having a Goldberg versus Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania, as long as it's not for the Universal Championship. I think the best way to go is to have Goldberg versus Roman Reigns and then have The Fiend versus John Cena for the Universal Championship. If John Cena wins, he breaks the record. If The Fiend wins, he beats Super Cena at WrestleMania and is a bigger star than ever. That's the best way to go, and that's a real superhero versus villain fight that we would really want to see. But what do you think about all your predictions for the show? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. There's going to be lots of videos coming up. We've also got a podcast launching very, very soon, so more details will be available on all of our social media channels, so make sure you give them a follow as well. Enjoy Super Showdown tomorrow if you can, wherever you can. I know some people will be working when it starts, but we'll be covering it all on our social media channels too. So thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'm sure I'll speak with you again very, very soon.